Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you.
And the crossbow. You were going to say crossbow, right? Of course he was. Conan's on board. Why aren't you? Silver-tongued Devil here. In this video, I have a spicy take on why, as a new starter, you should be dropping the bow and picking up the crossbow as soon as you can. Now you should know, the bow is the long-range weapon of this game. It quite literally does more damage the further your enemy is away. Keep practicing and keep at it, and one day you'll be there. But right now, that long-range skill and accuracy looks very daunting.
Don't be afraid. I'm going to give you the choice I never had.
If I'd have known when I first started, I would have been all over the crossbow. And even if you're not a freshly minted IDU player, it's never too late to give the crossbow a go, especially if you're finding the bow a little bit of an uphill battle. In time, you too can aspire to skulk in the rear with the gear, sniping enemies across the map with no hope of them being able to retaliate.
But it is not this day! This day we fight!
With the crossbow, that's right. Even Aragon's on board and he's a bloody ranger.
Fighting bar. Dinalank. Anurank.
See, there's no convincing some people. Anyway, let's go and get that crossbow unlocked. So first off, make sure the bow is in your non-dominant hand. You'll probably find that easiest. Fire a teleport arrow into the purgatory portal. Kill 100 enemies, and then head back here, either by returning to Sanctuary in the options, or dying. All of those satisfying clicks that you've been hearing are achievements popping. The one that concerns us right now is Torrent of Blood, because that unlocks the crossbow. So now that we have that crossbow, I'd recommend putting it in the same hand that you would hold the bow in. I know, it probably feels a little bit awkward to begin with. Later down the road, it will help with a key skill, which is rapid fire. And when you eventually come to having a proper go with the bow, you will hopefully find it easier because of this. Either way, you do you. Let's find out why I recommend using the crossbow to start the game with. The huge close range damage is probably one of the most defining features of the crossbow in this game. Now I do get it, that does lack the finesse of pegging those really long range headshots, but that's something that you'll evolve into later on as you get more comfortable. Using the crossbow close in means you will be dropping enemies fast. In a lot of circumstances, if you can get the drop on them, they won't even see you coming, they'll be dead before they can do anything about it. Now all of this is not to say that you can't use the crossbow at long range. Its features are just the reverse of the bow. That being that the further the bolt travels, the less damage it does. However, that doesn't concern us right now. We're all about that close range kill.
Only human.
Dodge this.
Now, as some of you may know, I've always pushed for being fast and aggressive with all weaponry in Death Unchained. This was largely in part to when I first picked up the crossbow. I found that the rapid fire nature, huge close range damage, and firing from the hip all combined very nicely into what I later dubbed as the gunslinger style. I do have some videos on that already. I'll leave some links in the video description. However, they are some of my earlier works, remakes coming soon. But one of the things you may not know about the crossbow is you can actually load a bolt, put the game into slow time, aim, and fire when you're ready. Now that is going to require a little bit of dexterity on the old buttons, and you are going to have to get comfortable with playing around with the arrow select button and knowing the sort of timings you've got to work with. A quick crash course in this would be that whenever you press the arrow select button, you put the world into about a quarter of its normal speed for 5 seconds. You can let go of the arrow select button and reapply those 5 seconds as often as you want, as many times as you want. This in itself is quite an advanced skill, but I can tell you now that you will be hard pressed to find one of the top players not using the arrow select slow motion at some point within their game. If you were going to learn this skill, pick it up early, it will pay dividends. And it really is as simple as load a bolt, hold the arrow select button, point the crossbow at your enemy, and just before you are about to hit the trigger, release the slow time. The close range punch of the crossbow would suggest that you are doing this up close and personal. When you get very proficient with this, there's no reason why you can't be using slow time in combat all the time. If you're not firing or reloading, you should be abusing that slow motion button. And with all that time on your hands, you have no excuse to not point the crossbow in their face. Now I know the enemies won't be blotting out the sun with their number of arrows, but sometimes it can feel like it. If you've gone for the left-handed approach on the crossbow, then you have the ability to be offensive whilst defensive. You can quite simply load a bolt up, hold up your shield, defend, block or stop whatever attacks that you need to, and still be able to retaliate with a bolt. If you can get comfortable with using the shield, this is probably one of the most simple ways to deal with knights in the entirety of the game. Load a bolt, wait for them to close the distance, use the slow time if you think you need to, block their strike with the shield, retaliate to the face. A quick note here, if you are in slow time you cannot activate the shield, however if you already have the shield activated you can use your slow time. And with the shield on, although you can't load a regular bolt, you can load a teleport bolt. These will do damage to enemies, but remember this will cause you to teleport to them, so be ready for that. This is probably best employed for defending yourself whilst moving. Now I know, although that's a really good example of rapid fire, he didn't actually hit anybody. Spoilers, he was trying not to. And therein lies the point that I'm about to make. Just because you are firing fast does not mean precision has to go out the window. Now although it may look that way to the uninitiated, firing fast whilst landing your shots is what we're going for here. And even if you're making a lot of misses, you're not exactly paying by the bolt, and there's also no penalties for missing shots in the main game. So what exactly are we driving for here? Well, it's quite simple. We are looking at trying to fire and reload quickly. It's a simple enough motion, but it will take some practice. It will feel alien to begin with, but once you get it down, the rewards are great. I find the mastery here in being fast is not in the drawing of the string, but actually in the timing of the trigger buttons. The arm motion can take care of itself. Pay more attention to alternating pressing the triggers to get that rapid fire going. And as with all things, practice, practice, practice. Ultimately, I've always found that this game is about time and tricks. You put in the first, I'll provide you with the second.